Which scheduling tool is the best one to use for Pinterest? Which is the one that will create the most amount of impressions and reach? Which is the cheapest and easiest to use, especially for beginners? And which one do I use? That is what I'm going to share in today's video. Stay with me to the end because the one that I actually use is probably going to be quite surprising. Let's get into today's video. So you've joined me inside of Tailwind, which is probably one of the most popular Pinterest schedulers that pretty much everyone uses. It's been around for an extremely long time and it probably has the best reputation. So I'm going to very quickly give you a glimpse of the kind of homepage and some of the things that I use. And this is the one I probably use the most often with some of my accounts, but I'll give you a small caveat as to why I may not recommend this one for beginners. So let's get into it. So as I mentioned, Tailwind has been around for a very, very long time. They've got a really cool discount now. There's pretty much everything's on discount because Black Friday is coming up. But in general, I think once you set up your Tailwind account, it is very, very simple to use. I'll very quickly log into my account. I'm not too sure if there's personal settings in there that you can't see, but let's take a look quickly. Quick pause. I have a new community that I'm launching on school.com. It's called Pin to Profit Academy. It's going to be the best place for you to get up-to-date Pinterest information. All of the blueprints that I have previously added to my email newsletters and onto my websites, I'm going to include inside of the Pin to Profit Academy. I'm also going to include live weekly calls for you, everyone to be involved in, ask me questions, get some coaching advice from me. And just as importantly, I'm going to have a case study specifically for this group where I'm going to start from scratch, show you exactly how I scale my accounts on Pinterest, how I create millions and millions of impressions and millions and millions of clicks on a month-to-month basis. This is all going to be included inside the community and I'm going to send you the link very, very soon. So if it's not below this video now, it will be below this video when you watch it. This is going to be a paid community, but I guarantee it's going to be worth every single cent because you're going to have me to grow your Pinterest account for you and make serious passive income on the internet. So if that all makes sense to you, check below this video. There should be a link there to the new community. I'm also going to give some fantastic bonuses and discounts to the first 10 to 15 people that sign up. If that makes sense to you, click the link below this video. Let's carry on. So this is what the inside of Tailwind looks like. I think I have multiple accounts. This one doesn't seem to be too active, which is cool. So we can kind of go through it. This is the pin scheduler. They have a new keyword section on the left-hand side here. This is the dashboard area on the left-hand side. You can see the amount of pins per day that I pinned here. So up to 20 per day for this particular account. There's drafts on the side here. This is usually something that my VAs go in and do. At the beginning, I used to do it myself, but now I just kind of give my VAs access and they can carry on. You can add your websites to here, so you can add more than one website, which is pretty cool. And obviously you can upgrade on the side here. Now, Tailwind has a fantastic customer support. The only caveat that I have to Tailwind is that it's a little bit pricey. So let's quickly pop into prices. And I think of all of the ones I'm going to compare today, the pricing is a little bit expensive. And this is why I probably wouldn't recommend it for beginners. Because it's too expensive, if I'm being super honest. Now on monthly, you're paying around $30, which if you're starting out from the beginning, that's just too much money to pay for a scheduler. So let's take a look at probably the second one that I'd recommend, which is called Metricool. Now this one I use very, very heavily, especially at the beginning. I had multiple accounts, which I still do. And I think Metricool, because they allowed you to have a free account for one Pinterest account and you don't have to pay anything, it made a ton of sense because I could just save money. So Metricool is something that I'd probably recommend for beginners to use. Again, similar to Tailwind, very, very simple to use. And it has pretty much all the same aspects as Tailwind, maybe not as fantastic a customer service. And if I'm being super honest, the dashboard doesn't look as good. But besides that, if those things don't matter to you, which they technically shouldn't, then I'd go for Metricool. And as I mentioned, let's take a quick look at their pricing. So as you can see here, it is a lot cheaper. It's basically half the price of Tailwind. And again, it does the same type of things. So if you are a beginner and you just kind of want to start off with a scheduling tool, then Metricool probably will be a better avenue for you to go down and a better website for you to go down. As I mentioned, I don't really spend too much time with the customer support because it's quite self-explanatory. And of course, every single tool has a really, really good support system. So you can look at the support videos. And if I'm being super honest, in general, when it comes to scheduling Pinterest and pins, it is fairly self-explanatory, okay? You pretty much just add your pins into the scheduling tool, give it a set time, and then just press schedule button, and then it just schedules them all out for you. Now, another one that gets recommended quite frequently to me, especially to some of my clients, is a one called Buffer. So I've used this one once in one of my accounts, and I did actually enjoy it. I think the interface is really, really cool. It's probably the most updated as opposed to the other two. And as you can see, it has quite a heavy user active base, which is fantastic. Also, another one of the features that I like about Buffer is that it does have an analytics integrated into the platform. So you can kind of see what's happening with your Pinterest account and your pins as opposed to just a scheduler. Now, pricing wise, it's probably one of the cheapest, which I think is really, really cool. As you can see here, most of them have a free plan, but the free plans can be a little bit limited. But I think the best one for people to look at to really gauge how much they're going to spend is the first monthly band. So this one, it starts at around $5 a month, which is on the yearly plan. But usually when you hit monthly, that usually doubles. But this is what I like about Buffer. It's relatively cheap as well, to be fair, for the monthly price on the Essentials plan. So again, really, really makes sense. The only thing I would mention is that for the Buffer account, you'd only have one user, which means if you do have VAs or multiple VAs, only one of them can probably log in, or potentially just yourself, to create the account and create and schedule the pins, which may not make sense if you have a bigger team. Besides that, it does exactly what it says on the tin, and I'd recommend it. So if I'm being super honest, the first three and the top three that I'd recommend is going to be Tailwind for its customer service and history. Metricool because it is free for one account, so anyone can sign up and set up their account and start scheduling pretty much for nothing, and it does continue to stay free, which is pretty cool. And then Buffer again for its very, very cheap low monthly price, beginner friendly interface, and also the fact that it has analytics. But I also want to share three more. Okay, so let's look at three more alternatives just in case you have a different preference, and also there's a few more on the market too. Now, Plannable is a further competitor in the Pinterest scheduling space. It has really cool interface, as you can see here. Now, I think I've only used this once, and for me, it was a bit too interactive and there was too many moving parts, as you can see in the diagram and the kind of video tutorial here. I like things that are just a bit more simpler, and sometimes it would kind of crash Chrome. Maybe that's just because I had too many things open, but it did work, and I think the free trial makes sense, so definitely check that one out. The second alternative is one called later.com, which again, similar to the rest. I've only used it once again, and I do think it makes a lot of sense, but this one is very expensive, so I probably wouldn't recommend this for beginners. And last on the list is going to be Pin Generator. Now this one came up quite a lot, quite heavily, especially when I was starting out. It is quite cost effective and very, very, very simple to use. Also, in terms of this isn't just a pin scheduling tool, it's also a pin generation tool. So you can use one monthly fee and you can generate your pins, as in like generate hundreds of pins per month, and also schedule those pins out, which makes sense. My only caveat to that is I prefer to have a tool that does one thing instead of multiple things, because sometimes you can have issues with potentially the scheduler or potentially the generation tool, and then you kind of have to use another tool because there's an issue with the tool. So I have used Pin Generator, not really for the scheduler, more for the generation in terms of creating the tools, the pins themselves. But this is a alternative to the top three that I'd recommend. Definitely something to check out, and also it's pretty price and cost effective. So if you're going to get scheduling on Pinterest and budget isn't an issue, go with Tailwind. If budget is an issue, then for free, go with Metricool. And if you just prefer something that's a little bit different and you want a really cool interface, then I think Buffer makes sense. My preference right now is going to be Metricool. However, one thing to remember is that Pinterest has its own native scheduler, and that is what I'd probably recommend every single person to start off with. And this is the reason why. So when you are on your Pinterest account, this is kind of a demo account that I have. And to schedule a pin, it's super simple. You hit your profile, you hit create, and then you can go ahead and add your pin in, your title, your description, your link, and choose a board, okay? And also a tag. Tags don't really make as much sense as they used to, but for sure add it in. Now, this is the native scheduling tool directly on Pinterest, and I probably use this about 80% of the time as opposed to other scheduling tools. And it's not because I'm cheap and I don't want to spend money on those. They do make sense. I have just found in my personal experience that using Pinterest native scheduling tool, it becomes a bit more native to Pinterest, and there is data in my personal accounts that suggests that when I use their tool, I see higher impressions, higher reach, and more clicks. Now, that's not to say that these scheduling tools don't work. Of course they do. They have millions and millions of customers. Just personally for me, I find the scheduling tool to be more intuitive, more native as it suggests. And also I get more impressions. So it's not as easy for me to track every single pin on a day-to-day basis, because if I have multiple accounts and I'm always using the native scheduling tool, I can't really see last week, Tuesday at 12 p.m. exactly which pin I've scheduled. However, for my accounts, I don't really have to know the exact pin that got scheduled 7 days ago. What I need to do is make sure that they've been scheduled, check to see them on my actual account itself, and then importantly look for the impressions and the reach on the account. So to summarize, if you have a team, maybe potentially you're an agency or you're helping someone else and they need to see all the pins that you create because they're checking everything to make sure that it's set out at the time you said, for sure use Canva, use Metricool, use Buffer. But if it's just your own personal account, you have a low budget and you just want to get going, and you're not really too interested in seeing every single pin, when it's been scheduled, how it's been scheduled, etc., just use the native tool on Pinterest, because again, my data suggests that it seems to work better than scheduling tools. Anyhow, you probably have a few questions. If so, feel free to add those into the comment box below, and hopefully this video has been a good one. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.